Hello everybody, I'm Peter from TSA and I'm here to ask Steph all about his experience with the multiplayer bits of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. So, Steph.
Hello.
What about the exoskeleton then in multiplayer? How does that work?
So, this is basically like the biggest new thing in the Call of Duty game for the multiplayer in a long, long time, I think. Basically, the most important thing that it does is it gives you a double jump. So it's instantly just like so much more flexible, and you can just get around the map so much more easily. You don't have to climb ladders or go upstairs or anything like that. You could just get up onto a ledge or clamber up to a higher part of the building in just like half a second or so. But you don't just have the double jump though, because you can also do, I think it's called an exo boost dash, is when you want to do like a dodge in four directions, and so that's then like a third jump almost. But you can do an exo boost double jump into an exo boost dash.
Okay, so this started out sounding like you were talking about moves from Sonic the Hedgehog, and now it sounds like you're talking like about moves from Street Fighter.
Yes, it really helps if you're able to count frames, because you need to do blocking. No, there's no blocking. You will die very quickly. This is still Call of Duty. You will get shot and die. So the Exo Boost Dash is kind of like a secondary double jump in the air, and you can like use it to dodge, get out of the way, get back in and out of cover, and so it's very useful and flexible. It means you can just get around to so many places on the map so much more quick.
And is it like charged with a meter, or do you have a battery for it? Is it limited use, or can you just do this all the time?
The jumping and dashing you can do all of the time, and it's basically and the left stick is going to get a real hammering, because instead of just being there for sprinting, it is now there for all dashing and moving quickly in four directions, so that is going to get hammered. But you do have batteries for some of the gadgets on the exoskeleton. So like the cloaking, which is sort of like this kind of shimmery active camouflage effect. It's a nice effect. It means that you can still see people that are stealth. But you've got that. You've got like abilities to silence your footsteps, riot shield built into your arm, which is a bit strange, and also those then are on a battery, and you can only use them for such a certain length of time each life, and then also the exoskeleton handles like grenade throwing, and it just shoots the grenade right to where you want it, which is quite handy.
That sounds, if you are able to just use like the movement abilities of the suit, the dashing stuff,
yeah,
if you're able to use that all the time, it sounds like it would have a big effect on how the maps work in multiplayer.
Oh, definitely. I think Sledgehammer have talked at length about how it took them like over a year to figure out how exactly they wanted the maps to work and be designed. So they definitely struggled with that, but I think they've generally pulled it off. Do
they feel bigger?
Yes, to a certain degree. Like there's a lot more verticality, which is a word which I dislike. There's roofs which you can get up onto a lot better. It's kind of strange. In some maps you can bring up a out of bounds warning if you jump off the top of the highest building that you can get up to, and then it says, no, you're not going any higher, mate. But yeah, you can get up on roofs, and I think they've had to make a concerted decision to not have that much cover on roofs, because people can get up there so quickly and then fire down.
Yeah.
It's sort of like to even up that playing field so that you can see the person up there, for one thing.
Like a risk-reward thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you do generally want to get up on high, because then you can also do the rather awesome exo slam. I think it's called a slam. I don't know. Which is, and that is awesome, because if you get it exactly right and you smash down on someone's head, you kill them.
Which is the aim of the game.
It is basically the aim of the game. It Mario-ifies the game.
The ground pound. It sounds fun and it sounds interesting, but it does sound like it might be a little bit more sort of Titanfall than Call of Duty. Is that a concern?
Yeah, I can see why people might think that, but it's definitely still very Call of Duty. With Titanfall, you generally want to be spending as little time on the floor as possible. And so like you've got things like wall running, you'll be able to jump on the back of other Titans and stuff like that, And the other game that I like to talk about with regards to jetpacks is Destiny, even though it's very different, because two of the classes you do have double jumps, which like then send you sailing through the air, and the third class you've got like a triple jump, which is still very looping and arcing in its trajectory. And with Call of Duty, I think it brings you down to ground a lot quicker. You're still on the floor a lot. You're not always double jumping around the world. You're mainly using it to get up onto a location and just like use it to get the advantage and get the higher ground. But it's still very much a twitch shooter.
That's quite interesting because I think of Call of Duty has always been like the story of ground troops. It's always been about the foot soldier. So it's interesting that even though they've sort of gone slightly into the future and they've got similar sort of mechanics or benefits as some of the sci-fi shooters that we've seen recently, it's interesting that they still sort of encourage you to be a ground soldier, be like foot soldiers.
Yeah.
Even amid that sort of high-tech stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the themes that they had when they were researching the game. So it's sort of, they've gone into looking at where the military is now, and then they've gone into trying to take like the technology, which is very much in its infancy at the moment, like laser guns and stuff like that, and then they've tried to extrapolate where that's going to be in like 40 to 50 years. I can't remember the exact time frame of this game, but it's a long way into the future. So there is kind of crazy stuff, but it's not over the top crazy. There's still a squishy human in the middle.
Yeah. And what about the other equipment? Is the like with the loadout selection? How does that?
Yeah, so it's called Pick 13, and it's an entirely new, it's an offshoot of Black Ops 2's Pick 10, and Sledgehammer are more than happy to say that it's an offshoot and like heavily inspired by this. So what this means is that instead of always having to pick like a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, your strike list and all that kind of thing, you have a lot more flexibility with it. So you can get a perk which allows you to then have two primary weapons, and each weapon and attachment and grenade and ability, everything takes up 1 point, and you can get up to 13 points in total. Mm-hmm. If you want, that means you can not have a second gun, and then you can take two perks, which might mean that then you are invisible on radar or something like that. And yeah, I think people are going to like the flexibility. Definitely, if you enjoy the Pick 10 system in Black Ops 2, then it's going to be something that people enjoy.
That does actually sound quite interesting because I tend to forget that I have a secondary weapon.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and just really concentrate on the primary one. Anytime that I do go into any sort of multiplayer with any shooter at all, I forget that there's another weapon and sort of focus on the first one. So if I could use the ability for, like, if I could use the slot for the weapon that I tend to forget about anyway, and use that for something else that might give me a little bit of an advantage and help me not be quite so terrible, that would be really useful.
You can then have like a third attachment on your primary weapon as a perk for that, and so then that third attachment effectively costs 2 points of the 13. So many things. Like I had one loadout which was like a standard like submachine gun, and then in my secondary slot I had a shotgun. So that was my don't follow me around a corner loadout. Then I had a second variant of this where I didn't have a secondary weapon, and I had instead a second exo ability. So then I was combining silent footsteps with the active camouflage, which didn't work too fantastically, but I still quite enjoyed running around without any sound of footsteps and looking generally quite invisible.
And so, what about there is a loot? Is there a loot system? How does?
Yes.
This doesn't sound very Call of Duty. How does this work?
Yeah, so the loot system is basically as you're playing, and this could be for just like time played in the game, doing challenges within a single match, you'll unlock all sorts of things. So there's guns, there's variants of guns, there's bits of armor, and like I think there's 12 or 13 different categories. So it's everything from your gloves to your shoes to your glasses to your like character's face, male and female, helmets, all of this kind of stuff. And some of it looks really outlandish. And what's nice is that as soon as you start the game, basically, as soon as you get like 3 or 4 levels in, you've already started to unlock like new helmets and
that all has an effect they all have like values within the game. They're not just cosmetic.
No, these are cosmetic. So this is just so that you look completely different. It's going to be interesting to see how people who get to, like, when you prestige, you can then unlock prestige specific armor. You can unlock loot in co-op and single player as well. And there's all of this stuff. But there's also the gun variants, which are specifically tuned by Sledgehammer themselves, like a submachine gun which has better accuracy at distance, but then you can't apply attachments, so then you can't have a suppressor on it, which is like obviously a bit of a downside. It's interesting because there is so much stuff in this game, and they're going to add more bits of armor and more guns as the game is out in the wild.
Yeah, well, it sounds like there's a lot of like new stuff and even new systems and just new content, a lot of new sort of assets that they'd have to build for this kind of thing. Sounds like a lot more work and a lot more to put into like balancing things and making things. So you can use like even those cosmetic things, so that you can put them together and not have them look terrible and clip through each other and things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely. I think that's like the 3 years that they've had to develop this instead of the usual 2. I think that's definitely helped them in that regard, because it means there's an extra year where they can have the asset creation guys just going, okay, let's make more armor, let's make more cool stuff.
Yeah. You've got another year, make more helmets.
Yeah, exactly. They'd just be making helmets for a different game, wouldn't they? So, you know, it makes sense. I think it's definitely an interesting new dynamic in the game to have all of this loot. It's quite nice being able to, when you're in the lobby and waiting for a game to start, you can like flick between everybody's character and see their cool armor, and then you can dive deeper and see exactly what it's called, and then maybe you want to look up on the internet how you get that particular bit of armor and stuff.
And so you mentioned that some of that is like specific to the co-op mode. So what co-op mode is it? How does that?
So
what,
it is.
What style of co-op are we playing here?
It's effectively a 4-player horde mode. It's not. Now, I haven't spent too much time with co-op mode in previous Call of Duties, but my understanding is it's not too similar to zombies, which you've had in Black Ops and Black Ops 2. It's more akin to like the survival mode, because it's called Exo Survival. It's more akin to the survival mode from Modern Warfare 3, but with 4 players instead of 2, because I think that was 2 players. And it's basically round based. You have 2 upgrade tables for your guns and for your armor. Then you've got like 30-second timer in which to spend a couple of points, which you earn as you're playing before the next wave comes. And this is going to be enemies who've got exosuits themselves. Then you've got special rounds where there's like drones come at you, and you have to take out drones, which are a bit more difficult because they're off in the distance. They're tiny.
I hate anything that flies in shooters.
Yes, well, luckily, maybe seeing as you've got 3 friends playing with you, they can do it for you.
That's actually a nice way of thinking about it. It means that you're as a 4-man squad, you can sort of decide who's taking on what role, and then react accordingly when the waves change. Yeah,
and I mean, there's 3 classes. There's 3 classes of Exoskeleton, and each class has got different kinds of weapons, and you can get a different perk. And so it's very difficult to get the hang of it, and you have to definitely work as a team, stick together, and make sure that you're reviving people as you get downed.
And so does that mean there is no zombies mode?
I think that the zombie mode is kind of an unlockable, but I'm not entirely sure what you have to do to unlock it. Because they've kind of
teased bits of that, haven't they?
They have teased it, but it's not an out-and-out zombies mode like you had in Black Ops 2.
Right. That would be quite cool.
Would be cool.
Like an extra unlockable bit just for the co-op.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That would be quite nice. So I think we'll call it quits there. Before we go, just a quick shout out to everyone to go and check the other video that we made about the single player side of Advanced Warfare, and also to nip over to TheSixthAxis.com and read the full review. Okay, thanks Steph, say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Mitchell, close the black shield! Come on, Mitchell! Now! Mitchell, now!